Being a barrister is a privilege. It means that every day I get to stand up and represent the interests of my clients. I get to fight for their rights, and I'm trusted to be their voice. When I was 16 years old, I was watching a television programme. It was a courtroom drama. And I saw these people in wigs and gowns, and they were arguing for a living, arguing on behalf of people that couldn't. And I remember thinking that this was a job I would love to do. You see, I was 16 years old and I was not afraid of an argument. And I thought I'd found a job I'd love to do forever, but I didn't think I could do it. You see, I was at a very academic school, but I was nowhere near the top of my class. And every day I was surrounded by my peers who far exceeded me academically. And on top of that, I had a Birmingham accent. No one on these television shows sounded like me, no one looked like me, and no one had a background like me. You see, I always thought you had to go to Oxbridge to even be deemed suitable to be a barrister, or that you had to be the child of a lawyer or a judge. Now, I didn't go to Oxbridge, and I'm not the child of a lawyer. In fact, I'm the first in my family to go to university. I always saw barristers as the most academically astute people in the country. They knew everything there was to know. They swanned around court in a wig and gown and always came from wealthy families in London. And quite frankly, I didn't think I was good enough, but I was determined to try. So off I went to university to study law, and then I went to bar school, where I spent a year of my life training to become a barrister. Now, bar school is the most intense period of academia you can imagine. The expectation is high and the pressure is immense. It's like a barrister boot camp. But what it's brilliant for is it teaches you how to think like a barrister, how to be an intellectual critical thinker. And once you've got through bar school and you've passed all of the exams, all that's left to do is to get pupillage. Pupillage is an exceptionally difficult year when you've done all you can do academically, and now it's time to put it into practice, so you learn on the job. You shadow barristers in court and in conferences, and you absorb all of their skills, so that in 6 months' time, you're ready to go out on your own. But the road to getting pupillage is not an easy one, and it took me 3 years to get it. And that's 3 years of hundreds of applications, countless rejections, and dozens of grueling interviews. The difference with pupillage is that you can only apply once a year. So once you've sent out all your applications and exhausted your options, and they've all been rejections, you have to wait a whole year before you can apply again. And it's soul-destroying. There was a particularly low period for me after my second year of applying, when I'd finally heard back from the last set of chambers I was waiting to hear back from. And it was a rejection. And I wanted to give up. I thought to myself, what more can I do? I was too tired and too drained to apply again. And for me, I thought I was done. But there was always this voice in the back of my head that said, if you want this, you will get this done. I knew I had a year of my life to fill. So I went online and I looked at internships in America. And I thought, how cool would this look on applications if I can say that I've been an attorney in the States? And that's exactly what I did. I spent the best part of a year as a personal injury and criminal defence advocate in the state of Connecticut. And I did it solely to make my application stand out. You see, for pupillage, there are hundreds of applicants for 1 or 2 spaces. And so the following year, I was determined to not let anyone take my spot. Throughout law school, my mentality changed. It became less of a if I become a barrister and more when. I decided that one day I would make it. And so it didn't matter how long it took me or how many rejections I would get. One day I knew I would be a barrister. And that raw self-belief was my driving force the whole way through. And in 2019, I received an email I'd always been waiting for. I got pupillage. I remember jumping up in an office full of people saying, I did it. And then I went home and spent the evening eating steak and drinking wine. Well, how else do you celebrate? The first day in court on my own case was nothing short of petrifying. I was prosecuting a domestic abuse case in the Crown Court, and the judge I was in front of was extremely experienced, with a reputation of being fierce, if not sometimes mean. And my opponent, the barrister for the defendant, was not only 25 years my senior, but he was also the head of his own set of chambers. So to really sum up what I was feeling that day was intimidation. As a young female barrister starting off on my career, I recognised fairly early on that the bar was dominated by men. Now, there are positive and negative experiences. There are some senior barristers that would view me as a junior practitioner and try and help me in any way they could. But there are also the select few that would try and take advantage of my inexperience to try and manipulate me to win their own case. And the problem is I never knew which type of person I'd be meeting in court that morning. I remember confiding in a female mentor of mine, and she said, "The second you let them intimidate you, they've already won." And I thought, wow, the second you let them intimidate you, they've already won. And I can quite safely say that no one has ever intimidated me since that day. You see, intimidation is a mindset. And if there's one thing that's in our power to control, it's the way we respond to pressure. I was raised being taught that it doesn't matter what happens to you in life. It's how you respond to it. That's what's really important. And pressure, so long as you don't let it affect you negatively, is a brilliant tool to be better, to work harder, and to prove you've earned your spot. Now, I suffer on a daily basis with something that's called imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when you're out there doing your job, but you just can't believe you're doing it. And whether it's because you don't feel old enough or experienced enough, you just can't believe you're actually allowed to be doing this job. And it's natural, and anyone junior in their field will feel like it. They may pretend they don't, but they do. It's easy for me to look at my peers and think, yeah, they're real barristers. But for me, I don't feel worthy to call myself a barrister. But the point is that it doesn't matter if you don't feel like you belong, as long as you keep grinding to prove that you do. So here are my top tips to combat feeling intimidated. Lesson 1, remind yourself on a daily basis that you are worthy. You are worthy to be doing this job, and you have just as much right to be doing this job as they do. You've been through all of the exams, all of the required experience, and all of the rigorous testing, and you've earned your spot, and you need to carry yourself as such. A bit of a fake it till you make it type ethos. Lesson 2, when I get into court in my suit or I put on my wig and gown, that is my metaphorical armour, an impenetrable shield, and it doesn't matter how I'm feeling inside, I carry myself in a way that's confident and that's fearless. It doesn't matter what you wear to work or what your morning routine is, it creates a persona that's powerful, that's formidable, that refuses to be ignored or dismissed. And lesson 3, you have to act as though whatever challenge comes your way completely unphases you. You have to pretend like you take it all in your stride, even if it's not the reality. And you pretend that way until it becomes your reality. Because the second you let them intimidate you, they've already won. Now, I don't profess to know it all. In fact, far from it, and I am still learning. But what I have learned is that imposter syndrome is not a bad thing, because every day it ignites a fire in me to prove myself and my ability. I then realised that the fight to prove myself wasn't just something I wanted to achieve in front of a judge or in front of my opponent, but a battle I wanted to conquer in front of my client. Let's say I have a 30-minute conference with my client before court. I found I was spending the first 10 to 15 minutes of that conference convincing them that 1, I was old enough to be doing the job, and 2, that I knew what I was doing. Now, question 1 was naturally due to my age, but question 2 always left me wondering, would there be this inherent doubt in me if I was a man? You see, most of my clients expect their barrister to be a white guy in his 40s. So when I rock up, blonde, female, 5'4" and 25, there's always slight confusion. I've been asked if I was a law student. I've been asked if I was a barrister's assistant. And I've also been asked if I was lost. And the point is that these types of questions assist in perpetuating a culture of sexism that leads to inequality. I'm proud to be a female barrister. I'm proud to be a female in a career that was typically known as an old boys' club. Things have got better, but to say there's equality at the bar would be far from truthful. Overall, women represent 38% of all barristers. At the junior end, those undertaking pupillage, 50% are women. But then on the other side of the spectrum, Queen's Counsel, who are our most senior and experienced barristers in this country, only 16.8% are women. So how is it that we have gender equality right at the junior end of the profession, but then as barristers become more and more senior, fewer and fewer are women? And that's the same for barristers from ethnic minority backgrounds. They only represent 14% of all barristers. And when it comes to Queen's Counsel, only 8.8% of all barristers. Things have gradually become more diverse, but there's still a long way to go. It's my personal view that it's extremely important to have diversity at the bar. It's important to reflect the society that you represent. When you meet a client, they're often at the lowest point in their life. They're fearful of being in court, they're unfamiliar with their surroundings, and they're apprehensive of the outcome. And it's important for me that I find some way of relating to my client. I always thought that being a Brummie would hold me back in my career. I mean, Birmingham gets a really tough time, but it's actually helped me. It's helped me build that relationship with my client. And it may be something simple, like I can relate to part of their background, or I know the area they're from. It also helps them instill trust and confidence in me, maybe because I talk to them on their level, or I simply don't look like the image that they have in their mind of what a barrister should look like. This formidable caricature that they've created, the same caricature that I had in my mind when I was 16 years old. I'm just a normal girl. Well, at least I like to think so. People always ask me, what is it that barristers do? And to put it quite simply, barristers are fierce advocates for their clients. But before you can be a fierce advocate for your client, you have to be a fierce advocate for yourself. You've got to be willing to fight for what you want and accept that through life you will hear no and you will have the door closed in your face. But each rejection is a step closer to success. You've got to be unwilling to compromise yourself for success. Unwilling to compromise who you are in order to succeed. You've got to stay true to that raw authenticity that makes you, you. I'm still that girl from Birmingham. I'm still that girl that's not afraid of an argument. The only difference now, I'm a girl that can proudly call herself a barrister. Thank you, I've been Gwynne.